Hi, thanks for watching. Before we continue, I wanted to share a little bit of why I'm building this channel. See, when I was younger, in my teens and 20s, I was pretty heavy into fitness, into bodybuilding, weight training, and then life happened. Family, work, adult responsibilities, and everything got pushed aside. It wasn't that long ago where I kind of woke up and realized I'm sitting here at 340 pounds plus, 44 plus inch waist. I felt terrible. Since then, I've been working to rebuild my health, my strength, my fitness, and not going about it as a 25-year-old, but going about it as a man over 50 with real responsibilities, real stress. Uh, what does it take to recover, train properly, appropriately? This channel is where I share what I learn about training, carnivore, ketovore nutrition, recovery, nervous system regulation, and how it fits all together. I can't promise that I have every answer, but what I am doing is documenting that process honestly. What works, what doesn't, where those struggles are. And if this message resonates with you, please subscribe. Subscribe, leave a comment, and maybe share a video with somebody who needs to hear this. Thank you. So, today I want to talk about nervous system regulation and why I stopped treating stress separate from fitness. See, for most of my life, I thought fitness came down to two basic things: train hard and eat right. And if you were disciplined enough with those things, your body should respond. But recently, at 54 years old, I started realizing that I had overlooked something that was influencing both my training and my diet. My body felt completely on guard. Now, I'm not talking about having a stressful meeting or being angry in traffic. I'm talking about carrying a low level of tension and readiness throughout most of the day and not even recognizing it as stress because it had become normal. That realization changed the way how I think about fitness now after 50, because you can train correctly, you can eat correctly, but your body still has to be in a condition where it can recover and respond. See, my old model was pretty straightforward, right? Weight training provides the stimulus, food supply the protein, the fat, the energy, and discipline produced the results. Recovery mostly meant taking enough days in between workouts to get a decent night's sleep. The model wasn't completely wrong, but I now know it was incomplete. I didn't think very much about the state my body was living in during the other 23 hours of the day. I didn't think about whether I was truly relaxed outside the gym. I didn't think whether my nervous system was moving naturally between activation and recovery, or whether it was remaining just slightly active almost all the time. Um, so I started realizing something was wrong. Before I began working on stress regulation, I had to first realize that something wasn't right. I was becoming increasingly wired but tired. My body could feel exhausted, but something inside me still didn't want to shut down. My sleep was inconsistent, my mind was constantly active, and physically, I carried this feeling of being on guard, almost like I was ready to pounce, even when there was no immediate problem in front of me. Um, it wasn't necessarily dramatic. Uh, I wasn't walking around having a panic attack. I was still functioning. I was working, training, handling responsibilities, playing music, doing everything I normally do. But underneath it all, I was this constant state of readiness. My shoulders would be slightly raised, my abdomen would be braced, my jaw would be tight, my breathing could become shallow or even hold my breath for periods of time without even noticing it. Uh, my mind was often scanning ahead, anticipating the next task, the next conversation, the next possible problem. Because I had lived that way for so long, it felt normal. I didn't necessarily think, oh, well, I'm under stress. I thought it was simply how I operate. Right? I started to notice that I was getting into like a fitness stall. And at the time, I felt like my fitness progress was beginning to just stall. I was still being diligent. My diet was clean. I was eating primarily carnivore ketovore. I was training consistently, putting in real effort into my workouts. I wasn't casually going through the motions, but the response I expected from that effort wasn't happening the way I thought it should. And that raised some questions for me. If I'm training hard and eating clean, what am I missing? Um, I started looking into testosterone, or 54. The question eventually led me to research optimization. I think, like a lot of men, I initially viewed just testosterone as mainly a number. How high is the total number? How can you increase it? What supplements might support it? But as I looked deeper, I began to understand that the total number doesn't tell the whole story. There is free or available testosterone. There are binding proteins such as SHBG. Uh, there's sleep, stress, recovery, body composition, and the larger hormonal environment in which the body is operating. And that really shifted the question for me. Instead of asking, how much am I producing? I began asking, what condition is my body operating in? And is that condition is that condition supporting enough strength, recovery, and body recomposition? Is it there to support that, or is it working against it? Um, uh, I'm not claiming that stress was simply blocking my body from using it. Human physiology is more complicated than that, but it became clear that poor sleep, accumulated stress, constantly feeling on guard were probably not creating the best environment for getting the most from training and nutrition. I was already doing. A body in survival mode will conserve resources. I started to see that I might not only have a training problem or a diet problem or a testosterone number problem, I may be having a recovery problem. And awareness is really what came first. The first thing I didn't do was jump into breath work or anything like that. It was pattern recognition. I started simply by checking in with my body throughout the day and asking myself a very simple question. Am I on guard right now? And what surprised me was how often that answer was yes. I began checking, is my jaw clenched? Are my shoulders tense? Is my chest tight? Is my abdomen braced? Was I breathing? Was I breathing naturally, or was I barely breathing into the top of my chest? Was I sitting comfortably, or was my body braced? Was there an actual urgent threat or problem in front of me? Or was my body simply maintaining a defensive posture? At first, I wasn't even trying to force myself to relax. I just simply wanted to recognize the pattern. Um, but that awareness gave me a baseline. And I started realizing that I wasn't only moving into a stress response when something difficult happened. There was a low level of readiness that was running in the background much of the time, almost all the time. So before I could regulate that as a state, I had to become capable of noticing it, right? Noticing it so I could learn to change the state. And once I could identify the pattern, I began experimenting with ways to interrupt it. That included controlled breathing or breathing exercises, somatic movement, consciously releasing unnecessary muscular tension, allowing my body to move just more freely. So after one particularly intense somatic breathing session, my mind for the first time became remarkably quiet. The usual tension, internal vibration just dropped out. My body felt heavier, looser, calmer, and that night I slept like a brick for the first time that I could remember. And what struck me wasn't simply that exercise, made me feel good. It was the contrast that I hadn't fully understood just how activated I had been until that activation finally came down. It was like living next to a loud air conditioning unit that suddenly shuts off. You don't realize how much background noise was there until it disappears. So that experience didn't prove that stress caused every plateau or physical problem that I had, but it made it impossible for me to continue treating stress regulation as something separate from fitness. Stress belongs in the fitness conversation. Hard weight training itself is a stressor. That's not a bad thing. Training provides the stimulus that tells the body it needs to adapt, maintain muscle, repair muscle, and become stronger. But the workout is only the beginning of that process. The actual adaptation takes place in recovery, and your body doesn't neatly know how to separate gym stress from work stress, from family stress, financial stress, poor sleep, dieting, or anything else happening in your life. It has to manage that combined load. So the gym may only represent 1 hour of a day, but the condition you live in during the other 23 hours matters. Stress can affect sleep. It can affect cravings, make impulse eating harder to manage. Can change how motivated you feel. It can make it harder to determine whether your body needs another workout or whether it needs more recovery. So it's changed, and I'm doing things a little differently. Right now, I now look at fitness as a three-part system, not just a two-part system. The first part is still intelligent weight training. I still follow a lower volume, heavy-duty inspired approach, which in where I perform a small number of exercises using controlled repetitions, and in each exercise, take one serious working set to technical failure and stop, and then allow several days for recovery. The second part is nutrition. My diet is still primarily carnivore or ketovore, where I focus on protein and adequate fat and consistency in the diet. The third part, the new part, is now nervous system regulation and stress reduction. That means I no longer assume relaxation will happen automatically. I practice noticing when my body is bracing. I use short check ins during the day. I work on breathing exercises or somatic exercises to help deregulate. I practice releasing that muscular tension. And I'm paying more attention to the transition between being active or activated and allowing myself to come back down. I'm starting to view down regulation as a physical skill. Just like lifting, it becomes easier to access when you practice it. And that's an important reality check. See, stress regulation doesn't replace progressive overload. Breathing exercises don't replace nutrition, and nervous system work doesn't replace taking care of yourself when care is needed. But it was in all this, it was easy to blame cortisol, and it was also learning that cortisol is not an evil hormone. We need a stress response. We need the ability to become alert, to become focused, ready for action. The goal is not to remain relaxed all day. The goal is flexibility. Can your system activate when the situation requires it, like a tiger, right? We want that. But can it return to that calmer baseline when the situation is over? So if it can't, that may be causing fitness plateaus, right? It doesn't automatically mean your nervous system is broken. There can be many other reasons that slow progress, but ignoring your total stress load may mean overlooking an important part of that picture. And there's a lesson in there. When I stopped treating stress as something separate, because fitness doesn't just happen to a muscle during the workout, it's the entire environment in which the muscle and the person attached to it is in and has to recover. Um, for men over 50, doing more is not the answer. More training, more cardio, more restriction, more supplements, more whatever. Sometimes the next improvement comes from creating a strong enough stimulus, providing the body with what it needs, and then allowing it to recover. And that's really what I'm exploring now. How the three pillars of weight training, carnivore, ketovore, and stress regulation, nervous system health, work together. I'm not pretending or presenting myself as someone who has all the answers. Rather, I'm sharing what I'm learning, what I'm testing, and what happens as I put these into practice. Um, in the next video, I definitely want to talk about the difference between training hard and simply living under too much total stress. If that resonates with you or the journey you're on, or you know somebody could benefit, please like and share, comment in the video, and subscribe, right? And follow along as I work towards becoming stronger, leaner, and calmer now after 50. So that's it for today. Train hard, eat well, and learn how to recover. Thank you.